Can I trigger you? Triggers. That's what we're going to talk about today, not the ones on guns. We're going to talk about triggers on habits and how you can change habits and what actually triggers you psychologically in that mental state to cause you to do something perceived bad or good. This is from Admired Leadership Field Notes. Like I said, I get their emails constantly. I love them. If you haven't signed up for them, you can just type in Admired Leadership Field Notes and get those. But this one's really good. They talk about triggers. And it's so funny because right before I was reading the email, I was trying to work on some affirmations that I had, to work on how emotionally I get when I start thinking worst case scenario. And then how I play out the story and I put the person involved in there. And then I imagine what they're saying and then imagine what I'm saying. And then I kind of play this whole drama. It's just plain drama in my head while I'm feeling emotions. I play this all out of my head and then wonder why I manifest things that I don't want in my life. And I caught myself. So I put an affirmation like, that's not real. My mind is making this all up. This is a flight or flight state. That's all it is. And it's evolution in our heads. We're not running from cheetahs anymore on the savannah. So our ego, our mind has to play these tricks on us and get us to where we get riled up with this drama. And some people are addicted to this. That's why they can't have, a great relationship or can't stay at a job because they're motivated off of triggers in this weird sadistic way. So what are the things with, how do you resist triggers? We get comfortable in these old habits. So how do you replace the old habits? At the same time, notice the trigger that's happening. Notice what happens when you're involved. What you have to do is kind of, and it's not as hard as it sounds, but it's like training your brain to be more self-aware. Training your brain to not identify, you have to separate yourself from your mind. So what your mind says and does is not the real you. For me, I believe my higher self is the real me. That eternal, whether you want to call it a soul, a higher self, whatever you want to call it, depending on, your belief system. But so I believe that's the real me. So what my mind says or my thoughts are not the real me. Now, if I allow them to be my reality, then that becomes reality. But it's not real reality. What I'm thinking is not true majority of the time. So it's just a habit. It's an old habit, the way you're thinking. And the email talks about triggers come in 5 varieties. Let's get into these. Number 1 is location, setting, or place. So, for instance, when you're at the gym or you're at work or you're drinking alcohol at a club with, your spouse or whatever it may be, these can trigger things. I see this all the time. You see couples that have had drinks and then next thing you know, you see them arguing at the table. Those are just triggers, right? The alcohol got present. A little bit of liquid occurred. Somebody said something that they were thinking that could be true or not true, and then challenged their ego. And then next thing you know, in public, they're having an argument. So, there's a lot of these triggers that can happen. When you're at the gym, you're triggered. So once you finally get there, once you get to the gym and you start working out a little bit and those endorphins hit, guess what happens? Then that triggers you to work pretty hard. And so there's the location, setting, or place. That's 1. Number 2 is time. Let me give you an example. When you first wake up in the morning, or when you're, going to sleep at night, or when you're really tired at 3 p.m. at work, there's certain times that are triggers. And then number 4 is emotional state. When I feel frustrated, for me, I have to be really resilient in watching and be self-aware when I'm hangry. I'm hungry and I'm kind of a little frustrated. And a lot of that comes from me just being hungry. And I've had to apologize to people and say, hey, sorry, I got a little snappy or whatever. I was hungry. And I try to recognize that before I say something. Sometimes I say stupid shit, but I try to say, you're just hungry. That's all. If you were full right now and you had food in your stomach, would you be this upset? And then I have to say no. And then I kind of laugh at it and be like, oh, okay. It's just a biological response from being hungry. That's all. So I need to remove myself from this situation, go have something to eat, and then carry on this conversation later, whether it's in my head or with the person. So, always look at that emotional state. What emotional state I am? Did I just get some bad news and then somebody walked into my office and they don't need no idea and I'm fixing to lay off on them? What happened? Did I get a bad text and now I have to do a coaching session with somebody? Well, that may not be the time. You may say, hey, give me about 10, 15 minutes. I know we'll be running a little bit late. I'll be right back, and then we'll have our coaching session. And then go for a walk. That's the best thing you can do. If there's a place that you can walk or drive to a park or something, a 10-minute walk, I'm telling you, a 10-minute walk can do wonders, especially if it's sunshine outside. Get out from underneath the fluorescent light, get some fresh air, go for a walk. Your emotional state will change, and then that trigger won't happen. And then the next one is people. People will trigger you. We all know this. There's just certain people. Usually the people that trigger me the most are mirrors of things that I perceive as weaknesses in my own life. So the trigger is actually me seeing my weakness played out in somebody else. And my ego doesn't like that. Once you recognize that, it takes all the power away. It kind of just removes the power plug from the ego. And next is preceding action. So when somebody does this, somebody gives me constructive criticism, my trigger is this. You see how that goes? Somebody complains about something. One of my kids complain about something. My trigger is you're ungrateful. Blah, blah, I can't believe I do all this stuff to provide for, you know how narcissistic that is? Your kids are complaining and then you turn around and make it all about you. I see this with parents all the time. They're so narcissistic with their kids and then they wonder why. Then they give them tons of shit and then they're narcissistic. They train them that and they're spoiled at the same time. And then they wonder why their kids turn out as a failure. It's that simple. But if you can find the trigger, if you could do a little bit of fun research and find the trigger with the old habit, then you can begin to visualize the opportunity to engage the new habit. What do you want to do? Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, you want to go to the gym. Well, what triggers you Monday morning not to get up and go to the gym? Can you change the time for when you go to the gym? Can you move your schedule around so you go in the afternoon? Can you buy a trainer to hold you accountable? Can you make a bet with somebody that you owe them $20 if you don't go to the gym? Maybe another workout partner or something like that. You guys make a bet. If I don't go to the gym, I have to give you $20 in cash, period. If you cancel the gym, you have to give me $20 cash. That's there's like fun ways to do this, to develop this new habit and hold yourself accountable. But just about like a lot of times it's like, for me, getting up first thing in the morning, going to the gym is not realistic. I won't do it half the time. So why make yourself do that? I would rather go in the late morning, afternoon, or evening time. That's just for me. So once I eliminated that and moved my schedule around where I could go late morning, early afternoon, and then I got a trainer, now I'm being faithful and I'm going to the gym 3-4 times a week. So it was that simple, and I've done it for 2 years now. So and they use this example in the email, and I think it's a really good one. Let me read it. A leader would like to eliminate the habit of responding too quickly when asked a question and replace it with the new habit of seeking clarity before answering. The trigger in question, a preceding action, is when anyone, especially a team member, poses a question directly to the leader and is expecting a response or answer. By becoming attuned to direct questions as triggers, the leader can rehearse and prepare themselves to offer a different response. This is like word tracks in sales. It's kind of the same things. Most of us have been in some type of sales thing where we had to learn word tracks. Well, the reason you learn the word tracks, military, you do the same thing over and over again. So when you get in a stressful firefight, the training takes over, And so you have to train yourself. Like when you're driving or whatever, just train yourself. Say, I'm going to pause and I'm going to say, hey, you know what? I need to gain some more clarity on that. Let's schedule a meeting tomorrow. And what's your schedule look like tomorrow, the next day? Let's schedule a meeting and pull your phone out. So you stopped from just having to give an answer. You went to clarity and pull your phone out. That's a physical thing you can do. So you just pull your phone out and they'll respond by pulling their phone out. And then you can look at a schedule. That gives you time to think about it. And it gives you a time to have a little coaching session, ask some questions with the team member, and gain some clarity. You can think about the process when they ask you that question. So, it's pretty cool if you can catch it And they say this in closing in an email. They say, anytime a leader wants to create a new habit, identifying the trigger and becoming aware of it will help. In the case of establishing a new habit, identifying the trigger and seeing it quickly is the critical skill. And that's the time, the essence of time, being self-aware enough and seeing it quickly. I like to replace my trigger with an affirmation. That's how I do it. So like earlier, like I told you, I was sharing something personal. I was replaying an event with somebody that I know, that we were having an argument back and forth because they did something to disappoint me or let me down. None of that has happened. They did not do that. I ran a scenario, worst case scenario in my head for absolutely no reason. So what I started feeling it, getting the emotions, getting pissed off. So you know what I said? That's not real. That's your ego, Jason. That's not real. It's not real. Till it happens, it's not real. So, I caught it fairly quickly. It took me about 20 seconds of playing the rollout in my head, playing that stupid rollout in my head and taking one of my friends and making them a bad person in my head and me being defensive. And then, I had this thing where people just always let me down all the time, because I'm never good enough. I'm not a good enough friend. I'm not a good enough in relationships. That's my upper limit problem. And you can look up upper limit in my search. Whether it's Spotify or, just type in ABQ Business Podcast upper limit and I've got several episodes where I've done on that. But that's my upper limit is I'm not good enough. So I have to work on that. Yes, you are good enough. Here's why you're good enough. You've created a ton of value. You guys have a great friendship. Why are you playing this rollout? That's not real. So that's mine. And if you guys listened to me for a while, that's the case. So identifying the trigger, establishing a new habit, identify the trigger, and seeing it quickly is the critical skill. So you pivot from one behavior to another, and that all depends on how quickly you can catch the trigger. So watch the trigger, guys, and I guarantee you'll be able to make that change.
Thank you for joining us on the Albuquerque Business Podcast. And thanks to our sponsor, RigbyDigital.com. Make sure to subscribe and share. And go to abqpodcast.com. Get show notes, resources, and links to everything we talked about today to help you navigate your journey as an entrepreneur and business owner.